it's an interesting question. So in the history of philosophy, which so it's a little warning about this because he published four books in his lifetime. If anyone makes claims about Hegel outside of those books, they're kind of and usually the one everyone talks about is the philosophy of history. Here's the problem, that they were assembled after Hegel died by students, and all they had were lecture notes from students. So that's just a preamble to saying, I think the basic idea has to be true. So in the history of philosophy lectures, Hegel says, he gives this, he tells them out of order. So he because Heraclitus the dating's a little bit inexact, but probably comes before Parmenides. But Hegel he makes Heraclitus come later because he wants to say this line. He gets to Heraclitus, he says, "Here we see land." So in other words, we've been drifting out in the ocean. We get to Heraclitus, now we see land, right? And so it's really, Empedocles is really interesting. I think you could do a lot with that, but it's for Hegel, it's definitely Heraclitus. And it's because, so it's interesting, it's not the famous fragment that says you can't step in the same river twice. He says there's another fragment. I think it's fragment 49a. If I'm not a Heraclitus scholar, so I don't have it totally committed to memory, but I think that's it, where he says we both step in the same river twice and don't step in the same river twice. And so that, I think, really captures the Hegelian idea, right? It's not, because if you say we can never step in the same river twice, it's this idea of absolute flux, right? But if you say we both cannot step in the same river twice, and we step in the same river twice, then you're saying everything is contradictory. And I think that's what Hegel really saw in Heraclitus. And he liked, obviously, Heraclitus's pet element was fire, and I think Hegel liked that as well. That the disruptiveness of fire was for him really important. So he because he lived among the Romantics, he took hikes into the Alps, and he looked in the Alps. He's like, I don't see what the big deal is. It doesn't do anything for me, right? But when he saw things burning up, he's like, okay, that's pretty cool, because the idea was there's that, and Heraclitus' famous notion that war is the father of all things, right? There's something about that, the inherence of conflict for Heraclitus that does have its resonance later in Hegel. So that's what he would say, and I think he's probably right about that Heraclitus is the one that's probably the closest to him. So it's a fun question.